Okay, so the UFC rankings just got updated today because it's Tuesday after the big event. I need to speak with whoever just made these rankings, man, because I'm looking at them right now and I don't know how half of these things can be the way that they are. But I was looking at the rankings and I was like, these are pretty much all my favorite fighters, ranked fighters in the UFC. I mean, if they're anything notable, they're probably going to have a number next to their name. There's a few unranked guys, but for the most part, my favorite fighters are ranked. And I'm like, man, all of my favorite fighters are getting old. Because my favorite fighters have been my favorite fighters since I started watching UFC in 2020. And dude, whether you want to believe it or not, the pandemic was 5 whole years ago. 5 big ones, you guys. So, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about which of these fighters is on their way out. How many of these fighters are on their way out? All of them are pretty much, which sucks because all of the classes are cycling in each weight class. There are weight classes who are losing healthier portions of fighters than other ones. Namely, like the heavier weight classes are keeping a lot of their talent just because in middleweight to light heavyweight, many of those fighters are around the age of 34, 35 with small deviation. And at heavyweight, those guys fight until they're like 800 years old, and they're supposed to do that. It's the same way in boxing, so who really cares? It's funny how many of these guys have just chilled in the rankings and haven't really even fought that much since 5 years have passed. But there's guys who have, and they've accrued a lot more damage in 5 years and have gotten older in that time. We all have, So I want to talk about, out of all of these fighters that are ranked and that are cycling out from classes, how many more fights can we reasonably expect for these fighters to put out? These guys are literally shortening their careers and lifespans, some of them, with their fight styles and their performances that they have. So we're going to start at the top of the list. I don't want there to be any suspense either, so I made it so that you can see all of the different people that I will speak about. The first guy that I'm going to talk about is Michael Chandler. He competed last weekend against Paddy Pimblett. He got rickied and is back with a 12 gauge, and we all watched it happen in 8K. It was hilarious, kind of. And it wouldn't have been the first time, you guys. And if you've been following the sport, this would have been the first time that Michael Chandler got kablamoed. So, I think that 3 fights max is kind of his full range of motion as far as what's left in his career for him to accomplish. If I can make predictions for Michael Chandler, he probably fights 2 more no-name unranked contenders and gets snuffed. And then the notorious Conor McGregor, he's going to get that fight before he retires. He's going to get that fight before he retires, bro. And that's going to be his retirement fight. He's going to knock out Conor McGregor. He's going to raise his fist in the air. And Hatman and his other son are going to be there. They're both going to be raising their fists behind him. It's going to be great. So 3 fights max, I feel like, is the full limitations of his capabilities. And if he goes beyond that, then whatever happens to him, he kind of deserves it. But that's kind of what I predict happening, is he fights the maximum of 3 more times, and then he calls it. If his next fight, honestly, no, we're moving him down to 1 or 2 more fights is reasonable. Because that was a really humiliating loss that he just took. And me personally, I wouldn't have 3 more of those in me, bro. And I feel like he could lose like that 2 more times. Maybe. Risk it, bro. 1 more? I don't know, dude. Like, we may never see him out in public again, bro, after what happened to him against Paddy. Against Paddy, bro. We all slept on Paddy. Paddy was supposed to get knocked out. And he was working Chandler. So if that happens against, like, some goofball who's coming up in the rankings, that would be maddening. That would be mad. That would be absolutely mad. So I co-sign it. I want to see it happen. The next guy that we're going to discuss is going to be Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, I'm going to put him in the same bracket as Michael Chandler. 1 or 2 fights is reasonable because he has a niche. And he has a lot of knockouts in the UFC, and they just feed him idiots for him to just fold like lawn chairs. And he always does it. And it's free money for him. And he gets to drive Lamborghinis and gets to get speeding tickets for driving 200 miles per hour and 80 miles per hour in like 50 zones inside of these cars. Derek Lewis, everyone wants to earn money as lucratively as he can. He is one of the easiest jobs in the world. Go into the octagon and knock out these fat idiots, bro. And he just always does it. And go eat chicken afterwards. He makes the mark every single time. The next fighter that we're going to talk about is going to be Johnny Walker. And I want to put him in 100% never fights again, but I can't say that with complete confidence because I feel like he will probably put on the gloves. 1 to 2 more fights is reasonable for him too, bro. Because it's not really like he's particularly old, but the way that he fights, he's definitely lost years of his life. And his brain, his body may be like 34 or however old he is, but his brain is like 900 years old. If we could translate CTE into years gained just through the erosion of your mental faculties, he's like 900 years old here. And so out of interest of preserving his own brain, 1 to 2 fights is completely reasonable for him. This guy's getting dropped by 19-year-olds in sparring, dude. He's losing years of his life where it doesn't even count and nobody will even remember it. So he needs to stop. He needs to stop eventually. You can't do this forever. He's been in the rankings for a long time. I think right now Johnny Walker sits at ranked number 11. He's number 11 ranked in the light heavyweight division, but he should just quit, man. Eventually, just get one more cheeky one off of just some scrub and then get out of there, dude. No more title runs. It's over, bro. It's over. Speaking of being over and no more title runs, Alex Pereira. I don't think that he'll duck smoke in the Magomed fight, but he may parlay it to a point where it might not ever happen, to be honest. Because if he gets beaten twice, that's really bad. And I think that he probably would get beaten twice, especially now that Magomed knows how to beat him and he's been in there and experienced the power. It might have been deception, partially, on the part of Alex Pereira to where he could be more aggressive now in the rematch and catch Magomed off guard because he never really saw Alex Pereira in that 4th round against Khalil Rountree. I would say that he may or may never compete again. He's 39 years old. That is not a good age to be trying to steal the title from a young lion who just took it off of you. Even if you feel like you can game plan differently to make the fight more competitive. How many of us really want to see the rematch with Magomed and Alex Pereira? Out of all the things that are going on in the MMA sphere right now, nobody's calling for that right now. Nobody's asking for that to happen. I think that more people were interested in Dricus versus Sean Strickland as a rematch than they are in Magomed versus Alex Pereira as a rematch. Because we are pretty bent right now that this man needs to go to Dagestan for 2 to 3 years that he doesn't have, and we can't forget about him there. Because by the time that we go pick him up from Dagestan in 2 to 3 years, he'll be 42. And what do you think he's going to do to Magomed Ankalaev at that point, who's literally been there the whole time? Who'll be like passing through the wrestling room as he's on the mats because he lives there. He doesn't have the time for it. I don't think that he should ever fight again, low-key. Can't say with 100% certainty that he never fights again, but he's accomplished so much. And the way that he went out against Izzy was really sad. I don't necessarily equate Magomed's victory over Alex Pereira to Izzy's just because he didn't get knocked out cold. But that was still very embarrassing for him. And for it to happen twice really tarnishes his legacy. So I think he's better off just ducking and not fighting him, to be honest. Even though the fan base is definitely going to call him out for it eventually. But by the time that they're calling him out for the rematch and being like, yo, you have to fight Magomed because like we're expecting you to do that, he's going to be 40 years old. If it's not until like another year from now. He's going to be 40. So I don't think he should ever fight again. He may or may not ever compete again, Alex Pereira. Great champion. We all respect him, but it's not really the ending we wanted. But he should just ride into the sunset at this point. There's not really much left for him to do. It's not really getting him a 3rd belt if he earns back the title. He's just a double champion and then a 2-time champ in one division, which is still a huge accomplishment. I'm not sure if it's ever been done before, but I don't know. I'm not sure if it's worth his brain health if it doesn't go his way. So the next guy that we're going to discuss is going to be Robert Whittaker. I will say 3 fights max for him. He's actually pretty young, but he's eroded his career through damage. He's taken so much damage and has gotten hurt so badly. His teeth broke in his mouth against Khamzat. And even like that's a crazy feat by Khamzat. That's a horrible thing to have happened to Robert Whittaker. And I'm not sure what this means for him now and his ability to take a punch. Having his teeth having to like be placed back into his like jaw like Lego bricks. It's not a good thing, dude. And he's 34 years old, but that's otherworldly damage that fighters who are 6 years older than him sometimes don't suffer. And he's in the prime of his competition years, which is hard for him because he's never really had the best chin to begin with. But now with all the damage, it seems like he's not really in it to last as far as being able to fight closer to the age of 40. I think that 3 fights is even kind of a reach for Robert Whittaker because they don't schedule him to fight on pace to where he could get to 3 fights before he turned maybe 37, 38. Just because he's always held such a high ranking that whenever he does fight, it matters. So they have to make it an event, and they have to make sure that the guy who's fighting him makes sense. I mean, not always, because we got the one knockout that he got over Aliskerov. Yeah, over Ikram Aliskerov. He got a win over that dude, and that was not really a fight that mattered. But most of the time, Robert Whittaker's fights are very meaningful. He's been losing lately, but for the guy who beats him, that means the world because now he can go and fight for the belt. That's good enough for pretty much all of us. So, the next fighter is going to be Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, after this fight, it's going to be his retirement fight, so he never fights again. That's easy. It's easy, and it's good that he never fights again. So we're just gonna move on. 100% never fights again. And honestly, this isn't even like a fan favorite fighter. We just all meme on Anthony Smith, so he never fights again after this next one. It's gonna be against who is he fighting with? Yeah, that boy Anthony Smith's gonna get boomed on by Mingying Zhang, and it's gonna be glorious. And that's this weekend, so you guys stay tuned for those predictions. Anthony Smith is about to take a dirt nap on the company dollar. The next fighter that we're going to talk about is going to be Khalil Rountree. I just dropped my phone. 3 fights max. Just because his fights, well, that depends. Is there an Alex Pereira level opponent for him to face? Because he can't take 3 more of those beatings. More than 3 at least, I don't think. That was years of his life gone after that fight with Alex Pereira. The amount of blood that he lost over those rounds was astronomical. That was probably more of a donation that I've ever seen any other fighter give to the canvas. As far as a single fight went, Alex Pereira was soaked in Khalil Rountree's life force, dude. It was crazy. And if there's people who just around beating him up like that every single time that he fights, now, you know it doesn't go like this, but if he does get outclassed like that, even one more time, that's enough to seriously make a man reconsider whether or not he wants to do this. His layoff has been crazy so far. He has a fight against Jamal Hill that's scheduled already. I'm rooting for this to be a competitive one, but afterwards, I do think that Khalil Rountree probably beats Jamal Hill. He'll move into title contention at that point. Against Magomed Ankalaev, he probably gets burnt up, but I don't see it being a fight where he's just one-sidedly beat the crap out of. And if he does get TKO'd, it won't be as much damage as the Alex Pereira fight. I'm thinking at least. He may just be a chin beast and can just take a brutal amount of punishment in each fight. But, you know, I think we'll kick him up into 4 fights for that reason. His chin is crazy, dude. And unless he completely lost it, no, we'll put him back into 3 fights max. Just because we don't know how his chin is now. He might have just cheese grated his entire durability stat in that last fight against Alex Pereira. So Jared Cannonier is a fighter who's approaching his division with the heavyweight mindset, so he'll be right up here in 3 fights max too. Otherwise, I would say 1 to 2 fights is reasonable because he was on a 2 knockout loss streak before he beat up Gregory Rodriguez, but he beat the chinless allegations because he survived rock moments against Gregory Rodriguez. His cardio was good for it. Whenever Gregory's was not, he was able to win. He still looks like a well-conditioned fighter. He's 40 years old, man, so the fact that I'm saying that he can still go for... no, 1 to 2 more fights is reasonable. I mean, 3 fights max, but 1 to 2 fights is reasonable, you know? 3 fights max, but 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. For him, at least. Just because he's 40. So, if I was in medicine, I would prescribe him only 2 more fights. The next fighter is going to be Israel Adesanya. I will put him in the 1 to 2 more fights is reasonable, but really like one more fight. If he does come back, it'll be against a guy who he is sure that he will win against, and he will beat him, and then he will never fight again, because that's the way that he likes to play this game. So, out of respect for the fact that he was a decent champion, I'll say it. He was a decent champion. Let him get a happy ending from the sport. And that honestly hurt me to get out with my track record of hating on Izzy on this channel, dude. But we're going to talk about his kin brother now, Usman. And Usman may never compete again. His knees looked really bad in this footage of him sparring against Israel Adesanya. Nobody's talking about what Usman's doing. Nobody's asking where Usman is. We all kind of know what kind of condition that his legs are in at this point of his career. So I think we're being respectful of that and just kind of giving him his time to return whenever he wants to. The problem is that he's doing a bit of talking. That's not really warranted at this point. But as far as title runs go, he can't beat Belal. Unless Kamaru Usman collects all 7 Dragon Balls and wishes for Belal to age 30 years from now and he wakes up a 70-year-old man, I don't know how Usman mounts a title run and goes back in and wins any significant fights in middleweight or in welterweight. And I think he understands this too. So he's picking his opponents very intelligently, but he doesn't see anything that makes sense for him as far as rankings go to re-enter them, or targeting the belt that makes sense for him either, because both champions would whoop they'd whoop him body. They'd whoop him body. They'd beat him body, easily. So, that's where I'd place him. May never compete again. Leon Edwards, retire. Tony Ferguson, retire. Dan Hooker, 4+ fights. I don't know. I wanted to say that he has a weathered chin, but no, he doesn't. The only thing about him that his body may just quit on him. But I think that he has the willpower to push forward in his career to the point where he's still fighting whenever he shouldn't, physically. As far as brain health goes, that's something else, but this guy is the type of dude to just keep on breaking his arm in every fight. And he had the hand surgery and stuff. He's just going to go back into another fight and fuck up that hand and break his arm again. And he's going to have to take a hella long layoff one more time. But it's Dan Hooker. It's Dan Hooker the Hangman, man. It's Dan Hooker. And so we're all into it. And it's all cool. So for as many fights as he wants to fight, if you ask this guy, he probably says that he wants to fight 7 more times. But he's planning a title run, a legitimate title run. Maybe with defenses too. So I would say 4+ fights for Dan Hooker isn't something unreasonable. He just recently tried to go to featherweight, and that's not really something that people are doing until at least the midpoint of their career. Maybe 65% of the way through their career on the average is a benchmark. So lots of fights, probably 4+ more. Merab, retire. Retire. Islam, I don't think he'll fight forever. 3 fights max. I think he might do a challenge for another weight division belt, and then he'll defend one more time in lightweight before he does that. And then, because I think that what they're doing now is you forfeit the belt and then you fight for Ilia Topuria is just kind of the guinea pig for how the new system will work. Maybe it's that you forfeit the belt at your weight, you go and fight for a number 1 contendership, and then you challenge for a belt. And if that's the case, Islam will get his second belt, and then he'll retire. And that will be if JDM does beat up Belal Muhammad. Then Islam will do exactly as I just said right now. So I don't think that the Ilia Topuria fight is something that he has on his radar, even though that's really what we all want. It's clear that he's not thinking about it. So I would say 3 fights max. He will supersede Khabib and set records in lightweight and in the sport that nobody has seen before. And then he'll leave. We won't see him get knocked out, inshallah. I really hope that we don't, because I like Islam. He's a good champion in my eyes. Another great champion, you guys. Great champion. We're going to talk about Jon Jones. And I may never compete again. I could totally see this being just a plan by Dana White and Jon Jones to stall out the heavyweight division until they can get new contenders in there that actually matter. So that it's not just a big blah like it's been for so long. And I'd rather look at the rankings and see John Jones as champion than. I mean, I guess Tom Aspinall would be cool too, but John Jones is kind of hype to me, at least. It's just really whether or not you're going to have a personal vendetta against John Jones for the fact that he's a bad person. Which, I mean, morally, we all should, I guess, and seek to not be like him, but, I mean, he's a great fighter, dude. And I will always concede that in conversation. John Jones is the greatest fighting man ever. So to see him as champion, it's cool for the sport, I think. Personally, it's more market value for the UFC, and I can see why Dana White prioritizes it. Tom Aspinall there in the champion position, it just doesn't really do as much for me as just like going through this website as it does to see John Jones there and to think back to all of the fights that I've seen and just the giant monolith of great performances that he's had over the years. So, but realistically though, once they can liven up this heavyweight division a little bit more, they won't need John Jones because they've already had a legitimate heavyweight champion there for a long time. It's Tom Aspinall. So once he actually has contenders to fight and they can actually sell him, you know, this will be cool. But for right now, John Jones is the champion. I think he's just a figurehead and he probably won't ever compete again. This was just a legacy fight, a dog and pony show against Stipe, and that was a good place to end things, I feel like, because I realistically don't ever see him accepting a fight with Tom Aspinall. I don't think it's going to happen. So, the next fighter that we're going to talk about is Renato Moicano. Renato Moicano, 4+ fights. He is 34 years old. It's weird to talk about his career just because, with all the damage and how long Renato Moicano has been in the sport, he seems to be older than 34, right? Whenever I was Googling him, I was like, this guy's like 38. He's got to be 38 like all the rest of these guys, dude. We placed down a lot of 40-year-olds already, and some 35-year-olds, but 38. Oh, you can't see my cursor. A lot of these guys are 38. Usman, Michael Chandler, I believe, is 38. Derek Lewis is 40. Alex Pereira is 39. Like, these guys are very old, scattered throughout. The two up at the top, I think they're both 34 years old, but they've taken a lot of damage in their careers. And Renato Moicano was just fighting with like something popping out. That just looks so freaky, whatever was going on here with him. I hope that he's gotten that like checked out or something, dude. Like, that was gross. It was really gross. Like, put that away, bro. It felt weird. Once like somebody pointed it out to me, I was like, ugh, brother, what is that? I would say 4 fights, maybe even more, is realistic for Renato Moicano just because he's good for it. He can do it. So he probably will because he wants money and he can't afford to lose. The next fight that we're going to talk about is Brian Ortega. I would say 1 to 2 fights is reasonable because where he sits right now in the rankings, let's look. He is ranked number 7. Okay, so 7. He gets a fight with Arnold Allen or something. No, they're right next to each other, so that doesn't even make sense. If he gets a fight with someone who can beat him up again. If he gets a fight with Diego, no, but they're probably going to make Diego Lopez versus Yair. Brian Ortega may just need to chill for right now because nothing really makes sense for him unless he fights down in the rankings. They might feed him to Gene Silva. And if he fights Gene Silva, what's going to happen is he'll have fought Max Holloway, who beat him to 1/4 of an inch of his life. He'll have fought Volkanovski, who did the same thing. And then Diego Lopez, who just got done beating the snot out of him. And he's been in the Goku Frieza pod just recovering his HP ever since he took that beating. And then he'll fight Gene Silva, who give him the 4th life-altering Eagle Rebirth. The forced Eagle Rebirth. The 4th forced Eagle Rebirth out of his lifespan. Which, the math, it doesn't make sense. If you know about the lore, you can't cram these numbers into how long it's supposed to take. So, the eagle, it can't just keep on smashing its beak and plucking its feathers out. And that's exactly what Brian Ortega will continue to do if he hangs out at the top of this division, because it is a Shark Tank. And he's displayed that he's got good grappling, but not the ability to keep himself safe and striking against very dangerous and sharp and powerful strikers. So he can get set, and he has to be careful, but he's not careful. So 1 to 2 fights is reasonable for him. Just as a feeler to see like where he'll be at the end of it. He takes way too much damage. The next fighter is going to be Beneil Dariush. Hoofy is calling him out. Hinata Moicano wanted the fight too. They know that this guy is on his way out, man. So 1 to 2 fights is reasonable for that boy. He's getting up there in age too. He's about 40 years old. And this is like a father beating ceremony whenever you sign on to fight him. I'm not sure why these guys just want to volunteer for this father beating. I guess it's easy money, because this is really the only easy money fight in the lightweight rankings. Even though he's still a formidable opponent, whenever you measure his skill set against other people's skills, he's an easy money fight compared to someone like, Dustin Poirier. Would you rather fight Beneil Dariush or Arman Tsarukyan? So yeah, 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. This guy has just been getting chinned too, so I don't want to see it continue to happen. Even though I think it's funny, like, these guys suffering CTE brain damage that they're going to carry with them until they're old men, playing with their grandchildren, that's not cool. I don't like that. I don't like the thought of that. I don't like to think about this. So where they are down to the point where I don't think that they'll ever recover, they should just get out. And I thought that Volk was going to be at this point too in his last fight. I'm glad he's not. So I would say him, 4+ fights. Just because he is so hard-headed. After he won his fight against Diego Lopez, I watched that one interview where he was like, "Mate, whenever I'm not fighting, I just be doing me heading. I just be doing me own heading." And he's like crying at the table and stuff. And it's sad, talking about like how he needs fighting. And that was probably a serious setback, having to take all that time off to make sure that his chin could recover and that he was like good. Because Volk loves to fight, man. And I think that this love for fighting will make him stay in the sport probably far past when he should. Which is sad for me to predict, but Volkanovski just has that, he just loves to fight. He's a fighter's fighter. And that's why we all respect him. So 4+ fights. If I could roadmap maybe 4 fights from him, probably Movzar at some point, Gene Silva, another contender. Maybe Ilia Topuria will try and fail at lightweight and then come back and then chin Volk, and that will be how things end. Dude, how empty would that make you feel? How empty would that make you feel if Ilia Topuria challenged Islam Makhachev for a title and he lost and he was like, "Okay, I will just go down and defend my belt." And then he pulls up on Volk and glasses him again, bro. That would send me over the edge. I would be at my limit at that point of seeing that. So the next fight that we're going to talk about is going to be King Green. I will place him in 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. He trains at Icon MMA, which is the gym where I was training and where I hurt myself. And I actually have met this guy before. He's a very good dude. So I like to see him win. I was very happy for him after the Grant Dawson win. Unfortunately, things haven't been going his way lately. And I hate to see the damage accrual. He does catch a cheeky win in the middle of these losses, but they're really bad, and it doesn't make me happy. Where it would make other people smile, or it would make me smile to see it happen to someone else. Whenever it's King Green, I don't like it. And I don't want to see it continue to happen. The sport doesn't stop for anyone. So I wouldn't ever endorse Bobby Green's decision to continue to fight past the point of maybe like 1 or 2 more fights. And if we get the same outcome of maybe like the Jalen Turner fight, God forbid, or the Hoofy fight, then we should definitely pack it up before then, because the sun is setting. The next fighter that we're going to talk about the sun setting on, Charles Oliveira, man. And he's a big cash cow for the UFC, so they have to market his fights properly. I think that Charles Oliveira, 37 years old. Man, 1 to 2 fights may be reasonable for him too. Because the way that they build him up, maybe like a year and a half in between each of his fights makes sense. Because it had been a while since he had competed before then. I guess the Arman fight and the second Chandler fight weren't too far apart, but he doesn't even have anything announced, and it's been that way for a long time. So, between now and 40 years old, he doesn't have much left to accomplish in the sport. So 1 to 2 fights would just be for him, but he could put on memorable performances in these 1 to 2 fights. He would just need to cherry pick the opponents and not actually seriously consider chasing down Islam for that title, because we know that will never happen in a million years. We have Gilbert Burns, who is the glazed jiu-jitsu man who's just been aging silently under all of our noses. This guy is like 38 right now too. He's in the 38 club. right along with Jose Aldo next to him. This guy, 3 fights max, I would say, out of Gilbert Burns. He's got to stay around in this division. Right now, he is number 8 ranked. They put him up 4 for some reason and bumped Michael Morales down 5. And then raised Ian Gary up 1. These guys are just doing whatever they feel like. The rankings don't mean anything. Whenever fighters say that, they're actually being for real. And it's cool because you can get more clout off rankings. But, dude, these guys don't know anything. They don't understand nothing. Why is Yair Rodriguez there? Mate, why are you dropping Michael Morales 5 points and raising Ian Gary? It's just however they feel that week. Gilbert Burns fights 3 more times. 38 years old. He probably fights until he's around like 41, 42. He goes with the Glover Teixeira method and just sticks around and gets just chinned concurrently through these next 3 fights, and then probably retires with tears in his eyes. And that is fucked up. That's fucked up for me to predict. But if I know anything about Herbert, that family lineage has that in it. It'll probably be a mad emotional moment. Imagine if Gilbert Burns retired after the Jack Della Maddalena fight. It would probably be like that. But it would just have happened more recently before it. I really hope that Gilbert Burns doesn't take another fall like he did in his last fight. But I don't want it to come at the expense of one of these young contenders getting fraud checked. Because, ew, Gilbert Burns. The title shot? Ew. I don't want to see him fight for a belt. Gross. So, speaking of someone I never want to see fight for a belt again, ooh, Jose Aldo, bro. Never let this man fight for again. I would say 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. Realistically, 1 more fight. He's going to fight Ayman Zahabi, and he's going to get worked, bro. And if he doesn't retire after that, then there's something wrong with that. That boy ain't right if he doesn't retire after he gets pieced up by Ayman Zahabi. What more do you need to prove to yourself and to all of us before you just are willing to call it quitsville, man? So 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. He's given so much to this sport. One of the longest title runs at featherweight. We're talking about Volkanovski this, Ilya this, Max this, Jose Aldo. But as far as modern featherweights go, he couldn't really compete, and that was demonstrated. But title runs overall, he had that, and it was completely erased by Conor McGregor, but it still happened. Just because of the fact that that left hand landed on his chin that night, that does not undo all of those years of him holding the belt. So it's unfair for people to be so critical of Jose Aldo. The next fighter that we're going to discuss is going to be Aljamain Sterling. And I'm going to put him in the may never compete again tier. And that may honestly surprise a lot of you guys. You guys may be like, no, he's not. Well, he's not really clamoring for a fight, really. It's not something that you see on social media, him talking shit to other fighters to try to get something signed. He's kind of just chilling. If I could be honest, I don't really even think that Aljamain Sterling fucks with fighting like that because of the way that we treated him while he was champion. I think he doesn't even like any of this, to be honest. And the Movsar fight getting given to Movsar, he's probably completely checked out and just enjoying his money. So good for him. He looks happy. He has a nice family, and he still trains and is involved with the sport. What he does is important. It's just he can't be marketed because of the knee that Peter Yan landed all those years ago. It's impossible for him to be marketed, and he understands that. So I think that he's not trying to overexpose himself, and he just kind of fell in love with this not being in the limelight thing, but still being wealthy. So he's just chilling now. Probably has crypto. He's probably chilling, bro. So good for Aljo. The next dude that we're going to talk about, Tony Ferguson. Again, we're going to put him in the retire. The next fighter that we're talking about is Tim Elliott. This dude has been at flyweight forever. This guy is one of Demetrius Johnson's title defenses. And I would say, I think he retired already. I think he did retire already. Did he not? He should have retired. If he didn't, 1 fight. 1 more fight or something. He should... Bro, he should never fight again. Retire. Peter Yan? Retire. No. Yeah, but I mean, eventually, because he's getting old, he's done what he's had to do. He's had his good fights. He's been the top contender. 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. I feel like he's kind of in the same space as Aljo, where he's just kind of chilling right now. He's enjoying the fruits of his labors. He's worked really hard for the UFC. He's accomplished a lot in the organization. Even though there's been a lot of asterisks around his accomplishments, he's done a lot for the sport and bringing eyes and fans to MMA, because we all love Peter Yan. So I would say 1 to 2 fights is reasonable. I can see him being dominant in these fights, maybe losing one by decision, and at that point he'll just call it, because I see him taking a pragmatic approach towards exiting the fight game instead of sticking around be out of frustration and just getting his jaw blasted off into orbit repeatedly, because that's not good for any of these guys, and I don't want to see it happen to any of them. Figueiredo, he's 37, I believe, maybe even 38 as well. I will say 3 fights max. The thing about the Brazilians is that they last forever for some reason. They have reptilian bodies and they can fight until they're old men, old men. So for him to be close to 40, he probably could fight into his 40s. Ranked right now number 5. It would take him about 2 losses to be unranked anyways, so I could see him maybe losing twice and then winning one and then calling it. Or maybe losing one, some combination of 2 losses and 1 win, and then that's his career. Just because up the rankings, I don't think that he does very well against any of these people. And people under him, like Mario Batista the GOAT, can probably beat that boy Davison Figueiredo in a fist fight. Which sucks, because I did believe in him a lot at one point, but let's not hang out for too long. The Vicente Luque pick that I have next, I'm going to put him into retire, bro. Retire. Vicente Luque's last fight was against who? It was against Themba Gorimbo, and that's a fight that just doesn't matter. And whenever he does get a fight, I mean, I guess he beat up Rafael dos Anjos not too long ago, but that's a lightweight. And then he fought Buckley, who's a true welterweight, and he got his butt whooped. So he can't hang with the big dogs anymore. He'll just collect his money fights where he can, but I don't think that he should fight again, because he suffered a brain bleed in the Jeff Neal fight, and that was not good. So he should definitely be watching out for that and not putting himself at unnecessary risk unless he really needs the money. Like I said before, the Brazilians have very durable bodies. It's like they're made out of just rubber. It's crazy. So this guy, orbital fractures, broken skulls, brain bleeds, all types of hemorrhaging. This guy can come back from anything. He's Wolverine. But I don't think he should fight again. He should thank God for the fact that he didn't die. And he should be a father to his children. The next fight that we're going to talk about is Pedro Munoz. I'm not sure if he retired either. He may or may never compete again. He did not retire. Pedro Munoz is still in the organization. 3-loss streak for this guy. He knows that people are cutting dudes. In 2023, he said that would be his last run for the title, so he's kind of far from that now, if those were his ultimate goals, which is sad, but it doesn't happen for everybody. He still had a great career. He may or may never compete again. I would say the same for Jim Miller, other than the fact that he definitely wants to end on a high note with the career that he's had, so 1 to 2 fights is definitely reasonable for him. For as long as it takes for him to win another fight, I think that's whenever he will retire, because he just wanted to be involved in UFC 300 for the namesake and for the career accolade. He didn't win the fight, and then he just recently fought Chase Hooper, and he didn't win that fight either, and he got beat up pretty badly by both people. So Chase Hooper did him much kinder than Bobby Green did, but not everyone's going to show the same respect for Jim Miller being as old as he is. So he should definitely pack it up after the next win that he gets. Take a fight against an unranked prospect who he thinks that he can beat with not as a developed skill set in grappling or something, and just choke him and then retire, please. Don't get knocked out. And speaking of a guy who I don't really mind to see get knocked out if that's what the future holds, I would say Henry Cejudo. Put him in the may or may never compete again. I mean, he was losing decisions before, but now he's getting poked in the eye and that stuff in fights and stuff. And it's like, dude, get out of here. What are you doing? Henry Cejudo is like the housefly who flies around the pie and just fucks it up. And you're just hella upset to see him around. And you're just like, man, why are you here? Like, damn, I was trying to eat that. Fuck. Like, get out, bro. Fuck. Get out of here, bro. So I'm okay with never seeing him compete again. Another thing that I'm okay with never seeing Colby Covington compete again. This is a sandbag world champion. This guy is so good at sandbagging people and saying what he's going to do and never plans on actually following through with. This guy is the CEO chief of that, of being the guy who's like, yeah, Ian Machado, Gary, sign the dotted line. And then Ian Gary gets like an impressive win. And then Colby Covington's like, yeah, man, I actually don't want to do none of that. And he thought that Leon Edwards was going to be easy work, and then he breaks his freaking foot in the first round. And then he just looks stupid, bro. So the damage, the loss of respect in the community, just don't fight again, bro. Because it's not worth the risk of tarnishing your reputation even more than it already has been burnt up by your own actions. So please stay gone. He's been underperforming so well, because I know he doesn't suck, bro. I know he doesn't suck, but he just is getting priced out of the current stage of welterweight. Today in 2025, he can't keep up anymore. It's over for him. You're done. Pack it up, buddy. It's over. The next fighter that we're going to talk about is going to be Justin Gooch, the Gooch man. 1 to 2 more fights is definitely reasonable for both of these fighters. They're kind of the same. They never sniffed that belt, and they probably won't ever, but they're damn entertaining, if not anything else. And they're valuable for that reason. And we're always going to turn on the illegal live stream to watch both of them fight. And it really does suck that looking at all of this right now, there's only really 3 fighters that we can kind of maybe count on to put on more than 3 fights. And there's a lot of people here. And there's a lot of fighters that I enjoy watching who are here too. It sucks, because what is the sport going to be without these people, you know? Moment of silence, really. Never forget the fact that these guys fought and were champions, and they did a lot. And they got us through some crazy times, like the pandemic, bro. Other hard times that you had between then and now in the last 5 years, bro. You probably watched UFC and that was some kind of release for you. So it's sad to watch all of these guys get the montage at the end of their last fight and have their career celebrated, and that's it, you know? And shame on those Brazilian people who walked out on the Glover whenever he was doing that. That was really messed up, dude. But yeah, that's what I feel about this. The sun is setting behind me, and it's making me lament further. I'm about to get off of here and just go lay on my side for a little bit, you know? Because it makes me sad, bro. So thank you if you stuck around to this point in the video. I appreciate you guys. All the interactions have been great lately. Thank you guys so much. I have more content coming. As always, I'm the machine. And I'm just going to keep on pumping it out. I'm the machine that turns Eggo waffles into banger content, you guys. So just keep on checking in with me. I will have more videos for you tomorrow.